It is member-supported Hawaii Public Radio, all things considered HPR1, and I'm Dave Lawrence. Grateful that you're listening today, welcoming back our buddy, who we've had on the program a few times. He's playing Saturday, Great Waikiki Beer Festival at the Hilton in Waikiki. It is one of Hawaii's favorite artists, Kenny Loggins, returning to All Things Considered. Welcome back, brother.
It's good to be back. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. And now this show came up sort of a kind of a surprise for a lot of folks. Many people have not even, as I was telling them about it, they were like, what, Kenny's playing this weekend? So describe what's going on. You playing solo with a band? What's going to be happening?
I'm just coming over. It's nice and easy. It's sort of a backyard thing. I'm coming with one guitar player, Scott Bernard, and we're going to fake it through a 4 or 5 tunes. Being as it's a beer festival, I'll probably do an acoustic version of Footloose. And, because everybody, I may just do Footloose 6 times. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
And you also have some exciting news. Throughout your life, one of the things that many people have associated you with is obviously House of Pooh Corner, but you've been able to take that and transcend it into other things that relate to kids. One of those is a new children's book. It's coming out October 11th. Footloose, since you mentioned it, it brought that to mind.
Yeah. Well, I guess about a year ago, a friend of mine, Charles Nurnberg, we'd done Frosty the Snowman as a book with music a couple of years ago now. And he said, have you ever thought about rewriting Footloose as a children's book? And I kicked it around with him, and we came up with the idea of doing it. He wanted a lot of animals. I said, well, of course, the zoo has a lot of animals, so let's start there. And I came up with the idea of the zookeeper being in league with the animals, where during a full moon, he lets all the animals out to dance under the full moon. So instead of kick off your dancing shoes, or your Sunday shoes, rather, it's slip on your dancing shoes.
Right.
So I did a rewrite on it, and it came out really cool. And it's been illustrated beautifully, and it's coming out in October, November.
You've done this several different times in your life, coming from your heritage with Pooh. It just seems a natural thing for you, huh?
Yeah, it really is. Well, the remake of House of Pooh Corner, I added a new third verse to it about 22 years ago, before my 4th child was born. And that launched me into a series of what they call children's CDs, or actually parent CDs, disguised as children's CDs. Because,
right.
Being a dad myself, I have 5. And I realized when kids love a record, they're going to play it 1,000 times. So if you don't love it as a parent, you're going to have to listen to it 1,000 times. So I decided that somebody should make a record that the parents could love as much as the children. And I started working on that. I did Return to Pooh Corner, which has done over a couple million units now, because the parents get it. And it also really calms the babies down. So it's a great bedtime thing. So I've been sort of working in that arena. It's really fun to do, and I feel like I know what I'm doing.
The point you just made, the song does have a very universal feel. It can be something that a really young kid could be even too young to understand it. It might just, in the musical properties of it, have a soothing sort of impact on them, yet at the same time, it can be deeply nostalgic for adults. It does have that kind of universal quality.
Right, and it's a lot. It's not just my own material, but covers of favorite songs. On that first one, I had St. Judy's Comet, which was a song that Paul Simon wrote. I had a Harry Nilsson song. I had John Lennon, Love Is. So, yeah, I had a lot of great songs that we've all written for our kids over the years, and I just put them all together in one place. And that's kind of what I'm working on right now, is another lullaby record.
I didn't realize, because we talked about Pooh before when you were in town one time, but I never realized when I was doing more of the history on it that prior to you and Jim tackling it, it was Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. That was the original release of it. Can you share the story of you presenting it to them, and perhaps any of the insights you have into its very first debut back in 1970?
Well, it goes back to when I was on my first job. I got a job as a songwriter, and I made $100 a week. And I moved in with some buddies of mine, a bass player and a drummer in Hollywood. And I used to go to different parties, and I'd always take my guitar, and there'd be other players there. We'd all sort of sit in a circle and trade tunes. And the one particular party that I went to, there were a couple of guys there from the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. And so I showed them one of the songs I played that night was House of Pooh Corner. And only the original version was more up-tempo. So they loved it, and they decided to record it, and it ended up on their Uncle Charlie album.
And you, the very next year, when you and Jim begin recording, right? It was only like a year later, and then you and him do that definitive version. What made you want to re-record it yourself so soon after they had recorded it and released it?
Well, that was one of my best tunes, and I wanted, if I was going to make a record, originally Jimmy Messina was going to produce the Kenny Loggins record. So the first record we were supposed to do together was strictly a production record. And so I wanted all my best material on it, and that House Blue Corner was one of them. But as we worked it up, Jimmy said, what if we did it as a finger-picking thing and slow it down a little? And it turned into a ballad, and it worked much better as a ballad.
And with such great sound quality, and flashing forward, just recently, you're back together with Jim. You did the PBS Soundstage, Michael McDonald as well, Blue Sky Riders. Talk about putting that together, and maybe some of the, when I mention it, what comes to mind as some of the highlights of that experience?
Oh, there were a lot of highlights on that. We just did that at the top of this month. 5 days, 3 were rehearsal, 2 were shoot days. We had live audience at the PBS Soundstage Theater in Chicago. And each night was a 3.5-hour show. The first night we started off with Loggins and Messina, and we did some of our acoustic things, some of our electric things like Angry Eyes, Thinking of You, Same Old Wine, some of the classics that go way back. And then we had an a cappella group called Six Appeal that came out, and we did Sweet Reunion. We did Whenever I Call You Friend with Georgia Middleman. We did my daughter, Hannah, came out. She's almost 19 now. She sang on Conviction of the Heart with me. Originally, the intro of Conviction of the Heart was my daughter Bella when she was about 4 years old. So I had Hannah reprise it. Only Hannah has the chops of a Christina Aguilera, so she added a few licks in there and kind of matured it up a little. And then I had her sing the bridge in the middle. Now, how long must we all wait to change the world bound in chains that we live in? That part. Oh, and I had a black church choir. I had a teenage choir. The church choir did Celebrate Me Home. The teenage choir did Conviction of the Heart with Hannah. I had a children's choir doing a song from my up-tempo children's record, a Donovan song that I put my own spin on called First There Is a Mountain. We had Blue Sky Riders played 4 songs. We had a string octet with David Foster when we played Real Thing. And Mike McDonald and David Foster and I did Heart to Heart together, which is a song the 3 of us wrote. And then Michael and I did This Is It and What a Fool Believes. Yeah, we had a lot of guests. Both shows were 3.5 hours long.
That's major. That's a lot of production time. And then they make that into what, like an hour that gets presented on the TV?
It's going to be a 2-hour special.
Wow.
I've been told it's Thanksgiving night if we can get it done in time. We still have one more day of shooting. We're going to try and corner Stevie Nicks in L.A. She said she's into it, so we can do a little bit of Whenever I Call You Friend together acoustically. Yeah, so a lot's happening. It's been a very productive month, and basically it's a 40-year retrospective of my career, and everybody showed up, so it's a very exciting time.
That is so cool that you're gonna Whenever I Call You Friend. When I hear that song, it brings me right back to being a little boy. I get chicken skin, as they say here in Hawaii, a term you probably know. And it just,
oh yeah,
I feel like I'm hanging out with my mom in the late 70s. Can you talk about how you and Stevie got together to write that? Just give us a little background on that song prior to its emergence.
Well, I had written it before Stevie sang it. I wrote it with Melissa Manchester a few months before Stevie came on board. I had been the opening act for Fleetwood Mac when they first launched Rumors. And so I got to go on the Rumors ride with them and open for them for about a year, which was really exciting. And I got to be good friends with most of the band and crew. And Stevie said to me, if you ever have a song you need a singer on, give me a call. And, of course, who's not going to call the most popular female singer in the world?
Right.
And so I was just waiting to when I had the right song.
That's cool. That's fun. And you guys play it live after that at times in the late 70s when it was a huge hit?
Yeah, she came and joined me a few times.
You do Steve Perry, Don't Fight It live with him ever in the same sort of fashion?
No, it's very hard to corner Steve Perry. He's been really, for all intents and purposes, retired.
Right.
And I called him for this show as well, but he's He's not. He's a little skittish about it right now. He doesn't want to go public until he feels he's ready. But he can still sing the shit out of anything. And I don't know why he's feeling insecure about it, because he's got one of the great voices of rock and roll. He did back then. We were in the studio when we cut Don't Fight It. He stepped up to the mic, and we were goofing on the mic doing other voices. And he did a perfect Rod Stewart, and then he switched into a perfect Sam Cooke.
Amazing.
I thought, wow. And yet he's synthesized all those characters to be his own voice, which is, of course, Steve Perry.
Yeah, that's a great compliment that you paid him, and a lot of people would say that about you, especially your resilience and the way that you present yourself these days is so strong, and you still have all of the things that brought so many fans to you. As I was preparing to do this, I was looking up some stuff on the internet. Tris Imboden, who has a connection to Hawaii, a drummer, is in Chicago these days, played with you, and I was watching you at Live Aid. I said, oh, that's Tris on the drums.
Right. Nathan East on bass, one of the all-time great bass players out there. He's like the #1 jazz god for a couple years now. Here's this huge show, and it was telecast worldwide.
Do you have great memories of doing Live Aid?
Not especially, no. Live Aid was a run 'em on, run 'em off.
Chaotic.
You know, it was very chaotic. Very few people knew what was going on. It was not extremely well run, and Graham did the best he could under the situation. It was thrown together, and he saved that show, Bill Graham. But I mean, as far as the telecast goes, as far as production, you know, Graham was the guy who invented preset bands where the amps and the drums would all be set up and pre-mic'd on a movable riser. And so you just roll one band off and roll another band on, and the lag time between was probably no more than 10 minutes.
Well, we're really looking forward to your return to the islands, and how about a plug for Blue Sky Riders before I let you go? What's the latest on when we're going to get that? New record is on the way, correct?
Right, it certainly is. We are closing in on a deal with BMG that'll take Blue Sky Riders worldwide, so we're very excited about that. This is our second record. And ostensibly, this record was paid for by a Kickstarter campaign, and all the Kickstarter people already have the record. It's called Why Not? But in working our BMG deal, they listened to the new record, and then they said, we want to hear what your first record was. So they went back and got the first record, and they said, you know, what we'd love to do is put together a best-of collection, because most people don't really know your music yet. And, you know, we only sold about 20,000 on that first issue. So they said, let's do like the best stuff from both records and come out with a really strong BMG release. So that's what we're going to do. And we don't have a release date on that yet. We haven't really signed the paper, but we're very excited about the possibilities of where this could go.
That's cool. You going to drop any of that stuff into your set in addition to 5 or 6 versions of Footloose? Might you throw in a little Blue Sky when you're here in Waikiki?
No, I haven't worked anything up without Gary and Georgia. Blue Sky Riders is a trio. It's a full-fledged band.
Yep.
And it just doesn't sound right without their voices.
I know what you're saying. David Crosby just came to town, and he dropped a lot of things from his set that just wouldn't work, and for the same sort of reasons that you're describing. And I guess add a reverence to the tune. Well, we'd love to see you in your town. How long are you going to be in Honolulu when you come this time?
I've got a couple days in Honolulu, and then I'm jumping over to an outer island to visit a buddy of mine.
Any way to hook up with you at the gig?
I'd appreciate it. We can do that. We can do that for sure. You come back and you want to do a little interview backstage, or how do you want to do that?
That would be perfect. A quick 10-minute interview would be wonderful, a follow-up to this, just so we have something to touch base.
Okay, yeah, so you're bringing your girlfriend back.
I can bring Famous along. I can bring Famous.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And I'll see you when you come to town. It's Kenny Loggins. He's this Saturday, Great Waikiki Beer Festival over at the Hilton. Do not miss this opportunity to see him with just one other person, a little duo, reminiscent of some of your other classic experiences you've done. And I hope you had fun talking today, Kenny. It's great catching up with you. I give you a big hug and a high five.
Thank you.
I'll see you on Saturday. Take care, brother.
Thank you.